So in this presentation today, I'm going to be talking specifically about information design for the finance sector. I'll be talking a little bit about some of the pain points and some of the issues that you face working in this area. I'll also be talking about some projects and some of the things that I've learned across the last sort of 20 years in this space. I won't be covering information design, what I'd call information design basics, like how to design the perfect pie chart or choose a legible typeface, because I'm kind of guessing that most of the people in the room here know that stuff already. So this is, I've got a sort of a staged approach to the way I work. I'll just quickly go through it. So there's basically 6 stages. This is nothing spectacular. It's a lot of information designers would use this process. Scoping, obviously, to help define the project. Baseline testing, as I like to call it, where you go in and test the existing communications before you go ahead and redesign them. And the benefit of that, I feel, is that it provides real insights into how to fix things. So you could have a fantastic brief from a client. You know, some of our scoping exercises, well, I'm in the middle of one now. It's been going for 2 months before we even do any work. And that's crucial for some big projects. You know, if it's a digital transformation project, for example, you really do need to scope things out so that it doesn't fall over later. But the testing is really important. Then there's an iterative process of prototyping, testing, and refining, and then the implementation stage. So I won't talk too much about that. It's pretty straightforward. Here's a range of different things that I do. So a lot of the work that I do for the finance sector is informed by the work that I've done in other areas. So talking about medicine instructions and information, forms design, diagram design, symbols, safety symbols, and there's bills and forms. And we also do branding, we also do illustration, we also do data visualizations. There's a range of different things that we do. Here's a couple more quick examples. So forms, I just wanted to bring up forms because forms are a very underrated part of the customer journey when you're talking about finance and financial products. It's usually one of the first interactions that a customer will have with that company. And often it's a bad one. Forms are often difficult to use. And I think this is a real lost opportunity for a lot of financial organizations, you know, to make this process right. You know, it's the only chance they've got a lot of the time to find out about you. And it's the only chance you've got to tell them, or it's the first chance you've got to tell them a little bit about yourself. So forms are really important. They're often underrated. And quite often in the projects that we work on, we don't even get to do the forms because they've already got something horrendous usually. And then all of the designs that we're doing beyond that are usually to patch up problems that have occurred through an application process. We also do a lot of retail stuff. So these are annual report covers. So we do cover the whole gamut of finance in our studio. Product disclosure statements, again, very important part of choosing the right kind of financial product for yourself. And we've been involved right up to the top level in Australia. We've worked with the Department of Treasury and Australian Securities and Investment Commission on short form product disclosure statements, which were designed to replace the big cumbersome 160-page things that you got that were just not very customer friendly, more of a legal way of covering the company. Bills, again, this is a thing everyone hates to get. We actually won an award for this one quite a few years ago now. And I remember when we won, I stood up to collect the award and most of the audience was groaning that this thing had even won a design award. So it was cool. It was just it was a horrible experience, but it was all right. It was fun to sort of, actually win something with something like this. Here's another bill, quite visual. I'll talk about this one a little bit later. We've done a lot of work with Macquarie Bank in Australia. This is a whole stack of loan documentation, as part of getting a loan to purchase a house. And I've got to say, Macquarie are great. They're very customer focused. They want to make sure that things are transparent and easy to use, and they've been great to work with. Some other stuff. This is full of data visualization. This is for New South Wales Department of Agriculture. We also take a lot from diagrams and instructional and explanatory design. That helps to feed into the work we do in this space. And again, medicine information. So this is some diagrams and instructions for the use of this Humira pen. And again, we tested the original before we went out and redesigned this. And the reason we got this job was because people kept setting the pens off accidentally. And we sat there and watched people use the existing booklet to actually give themselves a pretend injection. And what we found was, when you got to the point where you're holding the pen and you're holding your stomach and you're about to inject yourself, you needed to actually turn the booklet page to get to the next instruction. So people were putting the pen down on the table and it was firing it off, and then they'd go to turn the page, and then we were just sitting there going, so it had nothing to do with the customers or the patients using this product. It had nothing to do with the instructions. It was all to do with the mechanics of turning the page. So, that was a brilliant piece of information design, I thought. But again, testing is great. It doesn't tell you everything, but it is an important, critical part of the process. Now I'd like to talk just a little bit about financial information. And I've culled a whole pile of stuff out of here today because my presentation was just way too long. So what is financial information? So obviously there's the artifacts, the things that you receive that are full of financial information: bills, invoices, insurance policies, banking. Financial products are usually made up of two things. One, a bunch of products to help you transact. There's a whole stack of things to help you accumulate wealth and grow your wealth. And then there's a whole heap of products to help you protect those assets. So insurances, that type of thing. I like to take a little step back from it. So what is that financial information doing? We're using it to make sense of our finances, and we're using it to guide us when we perform finance-related tasks. So if you take a step back from thinking about financial communications as having to provide information to people and content to people, and think in terms of actionable documents, task-orientated information, it totally does transform the way you approach the design of these comms. So I like to think of them as tools of financial interaction. So at the end of the day, with our finances, often the only thing we have is the bank statement to make sense of our banking, or the annual statement to make sense of our superannuation or our pension fund, or the bill to make sense of how much energy we're using and how much it's costing us. So these are tools of financial interaction. The information that we receive in these enables us to make sound decisions and to take action. And that's a good way to think about it. It frees you up from the content, frees you up from the information that people are trying to push out there. And it gives you a new framework within which to design that information for customers. And I found it's very effective. So I like to think of it in that way. And the whole finance area there's a lot of baggage. I don't know how many times you'll be working on a project and someone will come up to you and say, what about nudge theory? How can we nudge them? We're only nudging them because they can't use the information you're giving them in the first place. What about, there's all sorts of things. There's regulations, there's financial literacy debate, and a lot of financial literacy and financial capability definitions, depending on who it's from, involve using financial products. So there's the World Bank, for example. Their definition is that you need to be able to use your knowledge and experience, etc., to make sound financial decisions, and they usually involve taking advantage of financial services. So one, if you're poor, you can never be financially literate. Two, if you're not earning much, then you can't be financially literate either, because you can't afford insurances which are there to protect your assets. So it's one of those weird ones. So, but there's so many different aspects to financial comms that you need to sort of wade through when you're doing this stuff. And a lot of the time, guidelines and regulations prevent us as information designers from doing our job properly. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's a lot of design problems as well. There's a lot of assumptions. So I think there's some better ways to think about it. And quite often when people can't use financial information, they're blamed. I think the financial sector is one of the biggest blamers of the receiver out of anyone. If you can't use this statement we've given you, you mustn't be financially literate, for example. You can't, but there's a lot of other things they ask us to do. They ask us to undertake maths tasks a lot of the time with financial comms. People can't do that. We should remove maths tasks from financial documents where possible. A lot of things are sent out on standard letters. When was the last time anyone got a letter from someone? It's almost extinct as a form of communication, and yet it's still used. And as I said here, if it was a species, it would be on the endangered list. So I think we just need to move on from some of these things. And I've got a little analogy too, because I think we tend to overcomplicate financial information. So I'm just going to use this. So the Panadol pack, which I had a big hand in designing. So it's paracetamol. And I worked on the original prototype for this, which became a bit of a design standard. So one of the things I'd say about this is when I look at a pack of paracetamol, there's a couple of things I need to do. I ask myself a number of questions. Is it okay for me? What are the risks? What are the benefits? How much do I need to take? For how long do I take this? And when do I stop? Okay. So that's all I need to know about Panadol, about paracetamol. I don't need to understand the chemistry of how paracetamol works on the pain receptors to numb the pain. I don't need to know that. And a lot of financial communications are like that. There'll be pages of stuff about derivatives or compound interest and all of these types of things. But at the end of the day, a lot of the financial tasks that I'm performing are just as basic and just as easy to communicate as how to take basic paracetamol. So I think we do tend to overcomplicate these things. The other thing as information designers, I think we need to be pragmatic. So what are the things we can't control and what are the things we can, and that's where we put our energy. So, if someone has a cognitive bias about a particular thing, I think it's good to be mindful of all of these other things, but let's control what we can control. And at the end of the day, we're controlling this particular communication for this particular product or this particular letter or this particular thing. And there's a lot we can do with that to ensure that the customers can use it and they can build on that. And I like to think that perhaps if we redesign them properly, the communications can act as real choice architecture. They can drive appropriate use, appropriate decision making, and improve behaviours in a way that also builds financial capability in customers. And this is a little prototype, little chart thing here, but the whole idea is that I'm using my financial comms to manage my financial resources. And I learn by doing so, and it builds my financial capability, adds to my existing knowledge base, which then improves the next time I need to use a financial comm. So I think there's a lot that can be achieved through financial communications as opposed to education and other types of things. There was a study back in 2004 that found a direct, the downstream improvement in people's financial capability was 0.1%. And that was based on an analysis of over 500 different financial education schemes that were out there. Hang on, let's grab a glass of water. How am I going for time? Oh.
You're doing well, about 20 minutes, no problem. Keep going.
Okay, cool. All right. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some projects and outcomes and things that I've learned. I've got a few little things that I'm going to be looking at. So privacy notice, some insurance cover and statements, a superannuation document, and some bills. So first thing I'm going to look at is a privacy notice. So I'm not sure how many of you are from a plain language background, but plain language is obviously a huge part of what we do with financial information design. And but there's also a visual philosophy that comes with being an information designer. So this is the before and after for a privacy notice for HSBC based out of Hong Kong. And we took it from just being long text document to being something that you could use quite quickly. So what we've done here is created a snapshot of all of this information on the back. So we've got, there's three core things, what we use your data for, how we collect and store it, and who we share your data with. They're the three big concerns around privacy to do with people's personal information. And that's part of any financial service agreement these days. And we've pulled out the core things on the front page. And then if you want to know anything further, if you want to dig deeper and get some more details, you can go to page 2, flip it over, and read all those specific points. But you get an overall snapshot at the front. So we've gone from having a document that's a little bit onerous, a document that requires you, as many of them do, to read the whole thing to find the information, to providing something that gives you instant access to the key aspects that you're concerned about, and then to be able to then delve further with that. And you'll notice also we're using a tabular format on the front, and perfect good use of tables is really, really important. When you implement these things, sometimes there's always a bit of compromise. So that particular prototype we were able to get it in testing to perform at a level of around 95%. By the time it was fine-tuned, and we'd worked with legal a little bit more to make sure that it was all okay, and they had a few specific things they wanted to happen design-wise from their marketing department, and we ended up with something that still performed quite admirably at around 80%. But you do often get a bit of a drop-off from your blue sky approach to your final approach. But there's a lot of compromise in the designing for the finance sector. So you've just got to kind of grow a bit of a tough skin and live with it. Insurance cover. So another thing that I'm looking at here, and in particular, is the use of tables. So in the plain language movement, there's a big, one of the things they recommend is to use tables. And quite often what you see, so there's the original and there's the new one, what you often see with tables is what could just be standard text dropped into columns, headings and text. You see the same thing just dropped into a kind of a table format. And there's nothing that's happened beyond that. Nothing that's happened beyond that at all. And this is the problem. So people go, hey, it's great to use tables. Yes, it is. But tables can be quite transformative with the information that you're presenting. So if you look at ours on the right, we've made it task orientated. We've brought it back to match the customer's behavior. So in this instance, they want to be able to look at this and go, oh, how does the death benefit work? Oh, if I pass away from natural causes, this happens. If I pass away as a result of an accident, this happens. If I'm diagnosed with a terminal illness, hey, great, they'll pay it out. But under these conditions, I need to be able to die within a year. Okay, great. In order to get this. So it sort of spells it all out, but it does it in a task-orientated visual format. And the whole point of using tables is that you can transform lists and data and information in a way that makes it, that matches the customer's behavior in terms of the way they want to grab this information and use it. So this is an important distinction I'd like to make. And I just want to show, I'm not bagging out plain English because I write plain English myself all the time. But it's just thinking a little bit harder and a little bit more about the way you use some of these design features within a layout. Insurance statements. So again, I'm using this insurance statements stuff to kind of, this is a current project, so I've kind of hit a few things on here, but I'm using it to demonstrate the information design process in a little more detail, I guess. So here's the original. It's a statement. And again, one of the key things I think with financial design, one of the key issues is the issue of frequency. So, and this is one of the reasons why financial education doesn't work. A lot of the time we'll do something and it's a one-off. We'll buy a house, for example. So we'll get a mortgage, we'll take out a loan. And the issue with that is I might only do that once in my lifetime. I might take out a life insurance. I might do that once in a lifetime. How could you possibly have the financial capability and the knowledge to do these things when they're one-offs? So everything needs to be designed in a way to fit the frequency of use. So if it's an annual statement that's coming out once a year, you have to keep that in mind when you're preparing your content and writing and preparing your design. If it's a one-off thing, like taking out a mortgage and buying a home, that needs to be, the information in there needs to support that act as a one-off thing that you may never do again and that you've never done before. So this is one of the key things I wanted to bring up with you all. So this is the original design for an insurance, life insurance policy. It's full of notes, full of text. This is how long it runs for. It's got blanks. So there's a few issues with production for this, where they've basically tacked one document at the end of the other, which is why you get these blank pages. What I like to do with something like this, you look at this and you think, whoa, look at all the content. Where do I start? Where do you start? I like to define what someone needs to do with this. And that helps you to create your hierarchy for the information. So you put the hierarchy in the order that people need to receive that, to actually understand it and work through all the things that they're doing. So if I go in closely, in this instance, I've just pulled them into different columns, but you could come up with anything here. But there's identification tasks, who's it from, who's it for, what product is it in relation to, and so on. Then there's transactional tasks that someone's performing to actually understand what's going on. And then there's insurance policy details, looking at, what the insurance covers and that type of thing. And then there's other tasks to find out further information or act upon the information you've received. And that gets used for a couple of things. One, it's the basis for a test protocol. And two, it's a yardstick that you can use to assess the designs that you're working on. Oh, is it easy to identify the statement issue date? You know, where is it on the page here? You know, is it easy to understand, you know, who the life insured is? You know, where's that listed, and so on? Can I do this in a quick, efficient way? So it's a really good thing. One little pointer, I know Carol's doing a talk about testing. The key thing I'd like to say is that we don't test people. We're not testing people, we're testing the design. So I think it's really important, and it changes the way you think about the way you analyze your results and the way you write up your results. And they're there to help you. You know, they're there to help you pinpoint problems and find issues and that kind of thing. So testing is a big part of this. And here's someone that was involved with the testing for this project. So they're just going through it. You're having a conversation with them. It's an interview format. Works really well. But testing doesn't come up with everything. That's the other thing. And this is where experience really does count. So this is a superannuation statement that I did for Macquarie Bank. And when you do the testing for this, and you say, what is it that you need to know when you get your statement? Because people don't know how to sort of, you know, assess their superannuation. They'll just say, oh, I just want to know what the bottom line is. Where is it? How much have I got? What they really need to be looking at is how it got to that point. So we added this 3-column element into here to try so people can make sense of how this total value occurred. So you either withdrew or contributed a certain amount over here, where you either deducted or you know, there's deductions that come out, fees and charges, and then there's investment growth. So what are the earnings? What is the return on that investment? You know, so what did it earn? Is there any change in market value? And these are really critical to understanding how your pension fund or super fund is performing. Because quite often you'll have years and years where the only growth has been the money that you've put in. And if you're getting that happening for 10 years, you probably want to pull your money out of that fund and put it in something else. So that's an interesting thing. But again, you know, it shows sometimes with testing, you don't really get that. The other thing I wanted to just quickly mention was the process. So in financial design, you see a lot of people using post-it notes these days. And I think you've got to be really careful about the process to come up with your conceptualization for things. And I think it's good to I try to get away from my computer, and I do things to forcibly stop myself from being precious about things. I'll pull out a big fat text like this one and draw on a pad just to get myself away from the computer, because I tend to be kind of finicky about my design, and it just forces me to think on my feet and do different, you know, come up with different designs. So this is the redesign for that statement that I was just showing you. And this is just a prototype showing the front and the back, and basically showing policyholder information, current cash value, how this occurred, and then details of what the death benefit's worth at this point, surrender value, which is usually often a lot less, annuity payments, and so on. So a lot of this has been driven by feedback from a client at scoping, where, for example, there is a lot of people that surrender these things early, and there's a huge cost to them financially when they do that. There's also a sense of how do you assess how it's going and if it's going to meet my needs in the future. So about managing customer expectations, which is where things like these graphs are helpful. So the data visualization is really helpful. And this here is a very important one as well. It talks about investment performance. And I'll tell you why in a moment. So here's some close-up details. And, you know, again, you know, we've put some text in here to try and stop people from thinking too much about stuff. So the original product illustration, so this is one of the things. So we're having problems with this project because one of the issues is the guidelines around how you report in Hong Kong. So the guideline says that you need to provide an updated product illustration, so a projection of how it's going. So you'll get one of these when you first take out a policy, and it will help you to sort of see, oh, okay, so in by the time I get to the age of 75, I'll have this much money in there. Great. And then the expectation is that by providing an updated version of that every year, you're helping to manage customer expectations, and you're helping to you're helping them to see if this is good or bad, or if it's still meeting their needs, and so on. We've had a crack at a new table for that, so which is kind of, you know, taking it from that, adding some color, clearly delineating the different periods that occur, because you've got a premium payment stage, an accumulation stage, and then an annuity pay stage where you're being paid out. And we've tried to make that clearer, and we've put totals down the bottom, which the original doesn't have. And you can see that when you get to the end of your policy, there's nothing left in there. This still doesn't really, for my mind, doesn't really work. And one of the reasons it doesn't work is because people are hopeless with numbers. I've done enough research to know that they just can't make sense of it. This is better. So that original product illustration gives you a worst case and a best case scenario for your investment, and something somewhere in the middle that they think they can meet. So my suggestion is that we go, okay, your projected best case was a return of 2.5%. Your projected worst case was 0.5%. Why don't we just whack that into a graph and then put your actual investment performance in there, so that you can see that it's within those parameters and it's going to still meet your needs. So much, you know, simpler than putting everything in a giant table that you've got to wade through every year. But the guidelines probably won't allow us to do this. So we're hoping to have a chat to the regulators at some point if we can prove that this is better. And then just quickly, bills, invoices. So again, I'll just quickly go through this one. So this is the original, and again, it's a very plain language approach. You know, it's a letter. There's an assumption people read. We know they don't. There's an assumption that if I put things in a question and answer format, it's going to be easier for me. Not necessarily. Why did I get it? What do I need to do? What if I wasn't the driver? What happens if I don't pay? You know, it's making an assumption about the kind of questions that I would be asking as a customer, and so on. You know, it's just not great. This is the redesign. And again, we tried to create a visual story here. So you've traveled on the CityLink without paying. If you don't have an account, you can set one up, you know, and then when you do that, you can clear out your bill at the same time. Otherwise, you could please pay this amount by the due date. So these icons and things, we tried to redraw these so that they match the bold version of the font, so they retain the same kind of look and feel. While this may look generic, we actually have populated fields in here so that it actually knows what kind of vehicle you have. So light commercial, heavy commercial, motorbike, or normal car. And this here gets populated with your actual registration number from your vehicle. So it's personalized in the final version, which is quite nice. And personalization is really important in financial documentation and financial comms. There's a lot of generic financial comms that go out, and it makes it look like you don't know who I am, you know. you're treating me like a number, or you're treating me like, I've sat through research, people hate it. So if you can make it specific to me as much as you can and personalize it to me, I'll sit up and take note. There's a map on the back showing people what CityLink is. A lot of people that go on this toll road don't even know that they're on a toll road. And then there's details here for the travel, which we discovered really don't make much sense to people, because these are sort of off-ramps, basically off-ramps and on-ramps that people wouldn't have a clue they were on. This is the original map that they had on the left, so you can see where we've simplified it. This is the original, this is the type of information they were giving to customers, which wasn't great. These are some rough, so I just wanted to show you that we go through multiple iterations to get to a final design, and I thought it was kind of fun to show you all the different variations that we did before we arrived at our 3-column format over on the right. We also looked at the images for these, so a lot of it was just drawing up, so the solid base that we knew worked, and then just trying to draw up the different types of vehicles. And then there was issues around the map. So one of the things we did discover was that the map didn't make sense to people. The on and off road and ramps didn't make sense to people, and there aren't tolls where you go off. They just know that you're not on there by the time you get to the next toll point. And it's really, really peculiar. So we did a linear map as well as this one that showed the specific routes you went on, which we could then kind of, so all of these wouldn't show. So, but one of the Batman Avenue off ramp might have been the one that you went on, for example, or from the CBD to Monash Freeway might have been the one you went on. And it shows you the toll points, which the toll points are completely unrelated to the on and off ramps, which is what is currently populated in the toll invoice. So it's, we did some testing and we found that if you actually just said you went through 3 toll points and it cost you this much money, it made more sense. Or you went through 5 toll points and it cost you this much money, it makes way more sense than talking about on and off ramps and this kind of thing. But again, sometimes you come up with solutions that can't be implemented, and that was a big change to their database and their back end. So a lot of the time, things like that just don't happen. So
can you wrap up?
Finishing up. So this is my key insight. So just finishing everything up now.
Yep.
So tools. So key insights. You're creating tools of financial interaction. Think about them like that. Frequency is a big issue. Maths, don't ask people to perform maths. Assumptions, don't assume the end user has ever used this kind of information before, and don't assume they'll read. And then there's a couple of things for us as information designers. Just keep learning and grow a tough skin, because more often than not, work in the finance sector is compromised. So that's it. So that's my talk. So
Alex,
thank you.
Alex, thank you so much. That's such an informative talk. That's absolutely outstanding. I don't know whether we've got some questions possibly in chat.
Yeah.
My first question, obviously, is there really a Batman Avenue in Melbourne?
Yeah, there is.
Most important thing. But I also, there are a few things that just absolutely delighted me, including, for example, the people in the summer school will know that I've sent them thick felt tip pens for bold mark making, and you've reinforced that absolutely brilliantly. Right, where's the chat gone? I thought I saw messages in chat. Here we go. Yes. Sandrine is asking about different levels of financial literacy. I guess different levels.
Yep.
Yeah, and you possibly answered that.
I did talk about that. one of the things you hear people say is that someone's got a low level of financial literacy, or they've got a high level of financial literacy. In all the literature that I've looked at, there isn't a defined scale for financial literacy. I've yet to find a definition of what a low financial literacy person is. And I'm yet to find a definition of what a high financial literacy person is. They don't exist. I mean, unless someone's seen something, I haven't. And to me, again, it's, obviously we want people to build their financial capability and their knowledge base and their understanding. And I think the tools we have are the only tools we have to interact with our finances most of the time, apart from talking to someone, talking to a, relationship manager at a bank or whatever. The only other way is by watching television, reading the newspaper, looking at using my financial comms. If those things worked better, then perhaps, we would build more financial capability. But as I said, as information designers, I can't control what level of education you have in this area. All I can do, and there's research that says just-in-time education is what they need. Just-in-time information is better. So providing that at the point that where they're using this. So for example, keep going back to this example, but taking out a loan for a car, for example, I might do that 3 times in my life, 4 times in my life. The first time I do it, it's going to be difficult. No amount of education is going to prepare me for that. So I studied German at high school for 6 years, and I've never used it. It's a bit like that. You get skills fade out. Like you go to Germany, they speak better English than we do. They've got a better vocabulary. Like you never get to use German. So it's a little bit like that with financial knowledge. And quite often you don't trust yourself to rely on what you know. And there's that aspect of it as well. With financial decision making is quite stressful and quite difficult. So, yeah.
Also, Alex, I think literacy is a two-way street. It's writing as well as reading. And so when somebody doesn't understand a financial statement, who's illiterate? It's the organization that hasn't communicated it well enough.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's why, and maths, take the maths out of it.
Yeah, so that. And that's in a way what data visualization is about. Here's a load of figures. You don't want to do the numbers, so I've visualized it for you. Okay, exactly. So Rosanna has asked about the privacy policy. She says it's great. Did you get any feedback? How did it go with real users?
We did test it. Like the feedback we got in testing, that people loved it. The people, so I had those figures there. You could see the figures. So people loved it. They said it was transparent. It was open. The fact that it was highlighted on that front page, they looked very favorably on HSBC for doing that. They were like, oh, you really are sharing this with me. You're not trying to hide it, obfuscate it in some big long document that I'm forced to read, and just the access is really important too. People do not like reading, and if they have to read, a lot of documents require you to read the whole thing to find information. If you pull the key bits out, it sort of opens the door. And it also helps. People are saying this is actually improving my confidence to read this other stuff on the back. The fact that I've got the core stuff on the front. And I worked really closely with their legal team on that one. And if you've got a good relationship with the legal team as well, it really help. They were really on board with it. They really wanted to make a difference for customers. So, yeah. Okay.
Look, Alex, there are 1 or 2 more questions. And what I'm going to do is,
I think
we probably need to end the session, but I'm going to pass these on to you in an email.
Okay.
You might want to pick up on them after the
I'd love to.
Talk.
Yeah, I can respond
okay
to
with
all
that. Yeah. But I'm going to just read part of one to you from Eloise. It's a brilliant presentation. Thank you. I think you need to hear that because it really was. And so I'm afraid we will have to wrap up now. But thank you so much, Alex, for sharing so much insight, for taking a swipe at Nudge, for plugging marker panes, and I'll send you all the chat, and hope to hear back from you. It'd be lovely to extend.
Yeah,
this
I'll
debate
take a
longer.
look.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take a look tomorrow. I'm probably going to go to bed in a minute.
Okay,
So,
yeah, it's very late.
early
Yeah.
lecture
Thank
tomorrow
you very
morning.
much. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.